Dit is vir my verskriklik lekker om saam met Dr. Audrey Delsink te kuier vanoggend. Ons gesels bietjie oor die beheer van olifantgetalle deur gebruik maak van voorbehoedmiddels. Dr. Audrey, thank you and welcome to GROOTplaas.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great opportunity.
It's a wonderful topic to talk about because, yeah, I think it's so relevant. So, first of all, I want to know if elephants are is an endangered species. Why is it needed to control their numbers?
So thanks, Mia. That's a great question. It does seem like a bit of a conundrum and often leaves people scratching their heads. So it is true that African elephants are endangered as a species overall, and they are classified as such on the red data list. But within Africa and certainly within our borders, in specific areas, they can overpopulate and exceed the carrying capacity. And this is especially true in areas where they are fenced in. So they are enclosed by fences. And so lethal management tools such as hunting or culling are often used to control these elephant population numbers. And this permanently removes herds or their bulls and therefore also their genetic contributions from the population in what we consider to be an inhumane way. Whereas in contrast, if we use our methodology, which is what we refer to as PZP immunocontraception, it's actually a reversible, proactive and pain-free population management tool that actually can help to reduce the growth rate or to stabilize it within the scope of the management objectives of that reserve and the carrying capacities within the specific area.
When we talk about using contraceptives to try and control the numbers of elephants, is it a relative new concept or how long have we come? Because I know when it comes to controlling elephant numbers, you've just mentioned, there's been quite a lot of things done. So how new is this concept of using contraceptives?
So contraceptives in the management of certainly domestic animals is not new. Obviously, the methodology is different, and traditionally they've used hormonal contraceptives. Certainly in wildlife, it has been used, and again, different techniques from permanent sterilization and again, hormonal techniques. In elephants, we've actually been using it in South Africa for close on 20 years.
Really?
So, yeah, it's a little known fact. We've been quietly working behind the scenes and doing our thing. But in fact, this methodology has actually been used in wildlife, particularly in the United States, in wild horses and white-tailed deer for close to 40 years. So it has a good peer review and research backing. And as I say, here in South Africa, we had the origins in the Kruger National Park, but I must qualify that there it was simply to test whether the vaccine would work in a free-ranging population. And it wasn't actually implemented as a population control method. It was just to see, okay, great, it works. And then from there on, we took it on to do a pilot study. And then the rest, as they say, is history. And we are where we are today.
Before we go into the immunocontraception vaccine, I just quickly want to know when elephant numbers are I want to almost say out of control. What is the impact of those huge numbers?
So again, a very important question to ask because, you know, a lot of people say, well, why not just let animals, whether it's elephants or lions or whatever other species be? And there is that approach. It's called the laissez-faire approach, where you just let the numbers go. And nature takes its course, right? But again, within our population, specifically within South Africa, where we have a fence encircling these populations, we have actually limited that option because we have removed options such as immigration from occurring. So traditionally, animals can't move and allow the habitat to recover. And also, we often put up artificial watering holes, we may supplement feed, etc. So we have interfered and created all these unnatural conditions. And so therefore we have to adopt some form of natural management to mimic those natural processes. And so that's why we have to adopt some kind of intervention to regulate the population. And so if we don't, what can happen is that the populations, whether it's herbivores or carnivores, can exceed their recommended numbers for that particular area. And I use a caveat here because every property is unique and there are unique circumstances. So I don't like to use a benchmark figure that says, oh, you should only have, one elephant per 670 hectares for argument's sake, because, as I say, there's unique characteristics that make up a reserve, and also you've got to look at the population per se. It's not based on numbers alone. You've got to look at sexes and demography, etc. But nonetheless, you can have an impact on the number of trees, for example, on the type of structure within the vegetation, and similarly for carnivores, you can obviously have an impact on the number of herbivores that are stocked, etc. So you've got to look at the population holistically, whether that be from an ecological or sort of herbivore assemblage. So we do need to look at these things quite carefully.
Now I want to get to this immunocontraception vaccine. How does it work and how is it administered?
Okay, so the beauty of this immunocontraception vaccine is that it's non-hormonal and it's non-steroidal. It's safe, it's reliable, and it's reversible. So I guess the best way to explain it is to go back in terms of biology. So a quick biological lesson here.
Yes.
Around every mammalian egg cell, including ours as human beings, there's a protein layer called the zona pellucida. And so what happens is around the zona pellucida, there's what we call receptor sites. And the sperm comes along under normal circumstances and he binds to that zona pellucida, and then he penetrates the egg and fertilization occurs, and then we conceive. But in the instance of this vaccine, if you take the zona pellucida from another species, and in this case we actually take it from a domestic pig, and you inject that, and I'm really simplifying here, but they refine the vaccine, etc., but they take that zona pellucida and they inject it into the elephant. What happens is that the elephant's body actually sees this as a foreign substance. And so it creates an immune response, hence the name vaccine, right?
Yes.
And working off immunity.
Yes.
And so the consequence of this is that it raises the antibody titers as a response. And all that happens is that the receptor sites around the female's egg actually change. So when the sperm comes along, he actually can't bind to those receptor sites. And so it's like the pieces of a puzzle. He can't fit those receptor sites, and so he can't penetrate the egg, and fertilization can't occur. That's as simple as what it is. And that's why we actually administer a booster vaccine on an annual basis so that we can keep those antibody levels at a certain degree to maintain the contraceptive effect. That's why we call it a vaccine. Same principle as a vaccine, and that's as simple as what it is.
Yes.
So I know when we talk about contraception, it often conjures up all sorts of images in people's heads of how we
it really does,
administer
yes.
it. But essentially, we mix the vaccine up in the field. We then administer it by means of a dropout dart. And so the dart actually consists of two chambers. The one is the chamber where the vaccine or the medication sits, and the chamber behind it is actually a marking substance where we inject that substance. And so my colleague, JJ van Altena, who is the project implementation specialist and the dartsman, he actually then administers the vaccine from the air. So we do it from a helicopter.
All right.
And the dart is fired at the elephant, and we're looking for the the injection to hit the muscle of the elephant. And so luckily, there's not much bigger than an elephant's rump, and so the target is big. And so it hits the elephant, and the vaccine is injected into the muscle, and at the same time, the marking substance at the back sprays out at the dart site. And so from the air, that allows us to visually see which elephant has been vaccinated. So it's a quick reference system from the air that we can quickly see who's been darted, which obviously aids in the administration. Well, so the beauty of this methodology is that there's no need to immobilize the elephant whatsoever. So we don't have to anesthetize her or anything. It's a quick dropout system, and we're done.
Well, that's really wonderful. And I just want to say here, it's never too early in the morning for a good biology lesson. Thank you for that. We've got 2.5 minutes left. If you can just tell me, is the immunocontraception vaccine, is it quite an expensive population control method for managers?
So it's very affordable. The highest costs are actually involved with the helicopter because we administer the vaccine from the air. And so you pay for the helicopter on an hourly basis. Implementation costs are around 2,000 to 2,500 Rand per elephant. And that includes the darts, the vaccine, the helicopter, and the professional fee. So basically, the more elephants that you do, the cheaper the rate per elephant becomes, because it's watered down amongst all the elephants. So when you're looking at the bigger scheme of things, I wouldn't say that it's an expensive management option at all.
Last question, because I really want to know this. How effective is it when you look at where you've done it where it's been done in South Africa? Can you see that it's quite effective?
Absolutely. So to date, we have implemented the methodology in 47 reserves across South Africa. And from coast to coast, we have done just over 1,600 female elephants across various populations outside of the Kruger National Park. And every female elephant is capable of producing 8 to 10 calves in her lifetime. And so for every female that we treat that's non-pregnant today, we are saving a calf. So if you work out that approximately, even if we are preventing only 50% of calves from being born, we are potentially saving 8,000 elephants from being unborn in the first generation only. That's not to say their calves, etc. So the exponential effect of what we're doing is absolutely phenomenal. Also, the methodology has been endorsed and recommended in the South African norms and standards for the management of elephants in South Africa, which is the Department of Forestry, Fishery and Environment's policy legislation on and guideline for how to manage elephants in South Africa. So I think that's a big feather in our cap as to how people should be managing the elephants.
Dr. Audrey, I really appreciate your time this morning, but we still have to talk about lions in captivity. So jy kan gerus môre inskakel vir 'n deel 2 van my gesprek met Dr. Audrey Delsink. Ek hoop jy het 'n lekker dag vandag en ek en jy sien mekaar natuurlik môre weer. Totsiens.